Hey, this is author A.L.McCarroll coming at you with the chapter 7 of my book 1 of my Into the Void trilogy, The Pawn. And if you haven't already, I really, really highly suggest you go back and listen to chapter 1 through 5 and, just listen over them before you listen to this one. You don't want to start in the middle of the book, do you? All right, so kind of a review over what's been happening. They're going to the beautiful world of Titania and trying to find one of Avenger's crystals. She's still pretty obsessed over it, so we'll see how that goes for Guinevere with that obsession. And let's see, an update on how everything's been going. Me and my husband have been watching the original Dragon Ball series together. It's been really fun, and it's really cute, really silly. We watched it once when our son was really, really little, and we're just kind of going back over it again because it's a good, fun little show to watch together, and that's been nice. Also, we're gonna go soon to the Renaissance Festival. I always have wanted to go to the Renaissance Festival, but we've never been able to work it out schedule-wise. But this time we're gonna go. I'm gonna dress like a flower maiden. My husband's going as just kind of like a peasant man. He's got the cute little shirt with the strings in the front and the comfortable loungy brown pants. And our son, he's gonna be going as a knight. And we're going to repurpose the outfits for Halloween, and we're going to be able to spend Halloween together, all three of us. It's the first year that my husband's been able to get off for Halloween, so we're going to make sure that we do it up big and have lots of fun. And that's pretty much all for right now, so let's get this thing started. Dr. Silver couldn't believe his luck. He was having dinner tonight with none other than Guinevere Matthews. She had agreed to have dinner with him on the heels of discovering the new crystal. It had taken the group 27 days, and he had seen her go from hopeful to desperate. Once the crystal had been found, at the height of her joy, he had taken his chance and asked her to meet him at a restaurant in the city of Utopia. He was still in complete shock that she had agreed. It had been fitting that in the end, Maxim would be the one to find the thing. The poor kid had been treated like total shit by any native Titanians he encountered. This was the reason why Maxim never strayed away from the base. All of that just because his similar colored hair, skin, and eyes resembled and altered. Most altered would change their skin, hair, and eye colors medically. The rarest thing among the altered were the ones that came out of this transformation with multiple colors. The medical changes made them unique and helped them stand out across the worlds. Marcus remembered having a few altered teachers at his school, a fiery red gym coach who he felt was a bit of a hypocrite for pushing them to run faster when he had altered his leg muscles not to feel as much pain. Also, a bubbly light blue art teacher had changed one of her eyes to see in infrared. Darlene, as a planet, had been a sandy shithole, but at least it was an accepting one. They were to meet in an hour at the old world-style Italian restaurant in the city of Utopia. He was thrilled at the idea of them away from all the other workers. The small base had made it hard to share a cup of coffee with her without anyone else being around. Guinevere never wanted it to seem like she favored him, which he completely understood. However, Marcus still hoped she had some kind of feelings for him, even though, at this point, he was sure they wouldn't match the magnitude of his for her. Guinevere had attempted to report directly to Christopher Tarring, when the crystal had been found a few days back. She was going to present her documents to him in person, but she had come to find he was away on a diplomatic trip. So she gathered her documents and created a message to send to him. She needed to do this fast because she still needed to catch a shuttle to the main city. Guinevere was going to have dinner at an actual restaurant to celebrate, not by herself or with a long table of colleagues, as she had done in the past. This time, she was going on what Daisy called a date. Guinevere was curious to know if it was a date, since Dr. Silver only mentioned going to dinner. Still, when she had brought up the subject to her friend, Daisy had excitedly told her it sounded exactly like a date. The topic was as foreign to her as a river on a star. Guinevere left the office after sending the message to Mr. Tarring and boarded a ground shuttle. She left the road view on and looked at all the passing plants and trees native to the world. It was as beautiful as one of the paid views these shuttles could provide. The city was breathtaking. The entire thing was built around a huge waterfall that turned into a river snaking its way back to the dark blue ocean. Buildings that simulated skyscrapers gave it an old-world charm. They were built of brown gravel native to the planet, giving each building a rich organic tone. They decoratively incorporated trees on nearly every corner. Guinevere looked out of the shuttle's window as it stopped in front of a restaurant called Titania More. When she told Daisy the restaurant's name, Daisy said it was a further reason to believe it was a date. Apparently, it wasn't pronounced Titania More, but as a play on the words Titania and amore. Amore was the old-world Italian word meaning love. Guinevere had countered that the name didn't have to have any underlying meanings. She stepped out of the shuttle and straightened out her lab coat. She looked around, wondering if she should try to find Dr. Silver or just go inside. That's when Guinevere saw him, leaning against a wall further down from the restaurant's door. It was strange to see him without a lab coat on. Instead, he wore black slacks, dress shoes, and a dark blue button-up shirt and tie that complemented his eyes. His hair was swept back and well-styled. He looked even more handsome than she found him on a typical day, and she suddenly felt very underdressed. "Hello, Doctor, Marcus." She caught the intoxicating aroma of oil and herbs mixed with the same cedarwood and bergamot cologne she smelled the first day she had met him. "I should have dressed up," she berated herself. Guinevere caught his eye and watched them wander down her lab coat and back up before he spoke. She worried about what he might think of her outfit. "Looking perfect as always, Gwen." He smiled in a way that made his eyes crinkle. She couldn't help but smile back at the sight. Marcus had soothed her first worry with just a few words and a look. She still didn't know how she felt about being here or what significance this night together held for him. She was beginning to grow lost in her own thoughts. "Let's go. I have a table reserved for us. I think you're going to enjoy this place. They make everything fresh." She followed beside him as he led the way up to the door of the restaurant. She looked up at the large, warmly lit sign as they entered Titania More. With Daisy's comments buzzing in her mind, she was taking in the smell of the food and that unique cologne Marcus liked to wear. What had she got herself into? The thought nagged at her, and she felt like she would eventually need to ask before her worry consumed her. She had been to a few Italian-themed places during the years she set up the universal transmitters. This place put them all to shame. Warm light bathed over the diners, giving them an old-world Renaissance glow, similar to works of art she had seen as a child in museums she had been to with her school. Each table was adorned with a candle that flickered light over the dark natural wood from native Titanian trees. Above their heads were a few intricate chandeliers glowing with golden light. Music was being played by a small band. It was smooth and quiet enough to still hold a conversation. She noticed couples swaying in each other's arms around a marble dance floor. A reservation at this place must have cost him a fortune. Did he expect her to dance with him? "I've never danced in my life," her thoughts screamed. The waiter led them to a table, and Marcus pulled out the seat for her. She sat, feeling her heart beat faster. Now, she thought, it needed to be asked. Guinevere watched Marcus sit down and look across the table at her, his features bathed in the warm glow of the restaurant. "Marcus, I want to thank you for bringing me here." He wore the same smile he had walked in with. "You're welcome, Gwen. I've been hoping to finally get some time alone with you, and now that our mission is done, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity." He picked up a menu and began to browse. In a rush, she took a deep breath and asked what was on her mind, a little louder than she had intended. "Marcus, is this a date?" Surprise and worry evident in his gaze, he looked from his menu. He quickly switched to a thoughtful look before responding. "I would like to call it that, Gwen, but it can be whatever you want it to be." He fixed her with a sultry smirk that made her cheeks flush. "Okay, Marcus, let's just see where the night takes us then." He ordered a bottle of wine, and she picked out a pasta dish with a name she couldn't pronounce. The description of it sounded amazing. The wine, added to the intoxicating aromas, made her feel looser than she had felt in a long time. "That's what I accidentally found Mr. Tarring's adult image search." They both were laughing at her story. "For a guy who hates the altered, he sure likes to look up a rainbow of women." Dr. Silver laughed openly. "Do you think he's still into all that? It's been a while since the planet had GCOM info search access. He sure seems like he hated poor Maxim." She waved her hand dismissively before responding. "That dirty old man is the biggest hypocrite in the galaxy." They both dissolved into laughter. "So, Gwen, could you tell me about your family?" She put her chin in her hand, fluttering her lashes, as if it could start up her thoughts. She was really feeling her drink. "My family, well, not much of a story there. They're an old Gaian family and have money which they used to get me into early education programs since I showed accelerated knowledge for my age. I had to live in a boarding school full-time when I was 8. They would visit, and it was enough for us. I appreciated their help for getting me where I am today, and I still see them on holidays." He copied her by putting his head in his hand and smiled warmly as he looked into nothing. "That sounds nice, Gwen. Maybe I could meet them one day." She smiled across the table at him. "Maybe so." She spoke before thinking. The thought of bringing him to see her parents made her heart flutter. "This is crazy. What are you thinking?" She sipped her drink, hoping the alcohol would push back her thoughts. She was enjoying herself, and she was enjoying being here with Marcus. Her Italian pasta dish had been the best food she had ever eaten. Admittingly, the serving was smaller than most restaurants she had been to. Still, she didn't have to worry about carrying around leftovers. Guinevere sighed contentedly and looked up at Marcus. He had a worried look on his face. "What is it?" She spoke friendly, still feeling the spin of the wine. He stood up from the table, reaching out his hand to her. "Do you want to dance?" Guinevere could feel her heart flutter, and she thoughtfully bit her lip. She didn't know what to do, but this whole night had been filled with first for her. Why not add dancing to the list? She put her hand in his and smiled up at him. "I'd love to." Marcus could tell Gwen had never danced, so he gave her simple, clear instructions. They swayed back and forth on the dance floor. Her hands were on his shoulders, and he held her waist and back. Each smile she shone his way made him fall deeper and deeper for her. This had already quickly become the best night of his life. Gwen spoke his name, breaking through his dreamy thoughts. "Marcus, I've never had a date before this, or danced. I'm sure that's pretty obvious." She caught his eyes with her coppery brown ones. She looked beautiful in the glow of the dance floor. "I just want to thank you for treating me like this." He leaned closer, her gaze drawing him in until he was doing what he had always imagined doing. He kissed her freckle-speckled lips, soft and slow. Marcus leaned in as she spoke, and as if it was an action programmed into her DNA, she reacted accordingly. Guinevere turned her head and he kissed her. His lips were surprisingly soft and warm. Their lips were locked in patterned movements. In those moments, her breaths came slow and her thoughts became blank. "No." Guinevere's mind spoke out in the blankness. "No." It came more forcefully. But she really wanted this. She was enjoying the kiss. "No!" her mind screamed. She couldn't push away the screaming thought. She pulled away from Marcus's embrace, and her mind grew silent. He looked at her, questioningly, and she stared back for a moment, both of them in silence. Then finally, he spoke in a husky tone. "We should go. There's a park down the road. We could walk off some of this wine." The night sky shone bright stars. Constellations were easy to spot as they walked a winding footpath decorated with many sweet fruit-scented flowers. Guinevere's mind still swam with the thought of their kiss. She had never felt anything that gave her such a physical reaction, beyond being mildly electrocuted. The two experiences were somewhat similar: a quick shock, shaking feelings, and complete exhaustion afterwards, as if the small physical movements were strenuous. She couldn't figure out why she had stopped the kiss. She had wanted and enjoyed it, but her mind was fighting her. She assumed it must have been a fear response. It had been her first kiss. One more thing for the list. Tonight definitely had been special. They had kissed. Marcus was still shocked that it had happened. In his mind, she had always been put up on a pedestal. His feelings for her seemed like an unobtainable, one-sided infatuation. He had never thought this had a chance of happening. Still, they had shared a meal, danced, kissed, and now he walked alongside her on a beautiful flowered path. "I must be dreaming," Marcus thought, as she laid her head against his arm, and his heart soared. They walked back and took a ground shuttle to the base. The alcohol and experiences left Guinevere feeling exhausted but beyond happy. As Marcus said goodnight, she wondered if he would try to kiss her again. She realized he would not, because she had told him to keep things professional around the others. Guinevere appreciated Marcus keeping his promise, but also thought she wouldn't mind kissing him again. She smiled as she told him good night and went to the small room that had her bed and belongings. She crashed onto the bed and wondered if she would still feel this happy in the morning as she drifted to sleep. Guinevere woke to strong vibrations on her wrist. Her calm alarm was buzzing. She groaned as she turned it off. Her head throbbed as she fumbled for the chain that would turn on the light. Ugh! Why did she look directly into the bulb? She squeezed her eyes shut. Her retinas were overwhelmed by the intense light. It washed the dull gray walls with an unnatural lighting. She laid back down in the bed and stared at the wall. Did last night really happen? She had gone to sleep so happily that it felt like a dream. But now that she was awake, with this hangover, it seemed like the dream had ended. "What you did last night was a mistake." "Was it?" "I think it went pretty well." Her mind went back and forth. She was used to thinking things over this way. Her mind had always moved faster than most others. He has bound to have an ulterior motive. If he did, it would have shown already. She rubbed both hands over her eyes and up to her forehead. What's so wrong with me going on a date with him? We're both adults with feelings. He is distracting you from the mission as you discover the next crystal, just like he tried to pull you away from it before. Remember, he is a thief. Once he steals your heart, the crystals will be next. I should talk to my parents about everything. That just happened, she thought to herself. They could help me figure things out, give me some outward perspective. You want to avoid involving them in it. What if things do not work out? It is best not to get their hopes up. You know they would love for you to find a man and have grandchildren for them. You need to keep your head on the mission. You have a new crystal. The crystal, she thought passively. She hadn't had much time to look over this new one. She put it into a lock tube and had it in her room. She got up from the bed and pulled the lock tube from her bag of belongings. That is probably not the best place to keep something so important. She used her fingerprint to unlock the tube and turned it over, letting the 2-inch dark purple crystal fall into her cupped hand. It was magnificent. She leaned in to look closer at its facets. She could see the dance floor of titanium moire playing across the crystal surface as figures moved to silent music. You should look into the crystal. She followed her thought's request, feeling the pull as she did. A vivid vision overtook her. She could observe, but not hear or smell, everything of the night before, as if she was there but overhead looking down. She watched the dancers and caught a short one with bright ginger hair and a tall, dark-haired man with pale skin, reflecting golden light shining in his deep blue eyes. They both looked deeply happy as Marcus leaned in for a kiss. The vision changed to Marcus going from lab to lab, stealing things and changing footage on cameras with the device he had illegally created. She could feel a heavy disdain wash over her mind as the vision shifted again. This following vision showed her leaving her room and talking to Dr. Silver. She could see him take the lock tube that held the crystal out of her lab coat pocket. Would he actually do that? She questioned as she watched the vision end and she opened up her eyes. Her head had slumped onto her shoulder as if she had fallen asleep. How strange, she thought. It was so vivid. It must have been just a dream. She slipped the crystal back into the lock tube, her pocket, and then left her room. She wanted to go to the shared bathroom and see if she could get a shower in to try to clear her mind. As she walked down the narrow hall, she saw many people. Some greeted her, and she returned their niceties. That's when she spotted him, and she felt surreal because she had just watched this play out from a silent overhead view. "Good morning, Miss Matthews." Marcus smiled playfully as he came up to her, brushing past her in the narrow space. But before he continued walking past her, he waved the lock tube under her chin. "You need to be more careful with this thing. Anyone could just take it out of your pocket. It would be a shame to look for it all over again." She looked down at the tube for a moment, completely dumbfounded. She snatched it from his hand. "Thanks for letting me see my mistake, Dr. Silver." Hey, this is A.L.McCarroll. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Remember to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, also turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter. Don't forget to follow me on my social media platforms for updates. You can find the links in the description box. Thank you again for watching. Stay tuned and take care.